Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Making My Brother Play Otome Games. We're on episode 7 now?
7, yes.
And last time we basically started running towards the Fushimi Magistrate's office. And we're taking part in what's later going to be known as the Kinmon incident, I believe. Anyway, we're chasing down some Choshu soldiers that were headed for the mountain. And we came across this creepy guy with blonde hair and red eyes, which automatically makes him creepy.
Automatically makes him a bad guy.
And he just cut down one of our soldiers without more than like 2 sentences of greeting.
Yeah. And then insulted us.
So we're going to figure out who he is.
Yes. Alright, here we go. Continuing on. First you got in my way at Ikeda, and now you're running around looking for more good deeds to appropriate as your own.
The way he spoke made it sound as if he'd been there the night of the Battle of Ikeda Inn.
So the peasant samurai haven't had their fill of defeat yet? Oh, excuse me. You aren't even real samurai, are you?
Come closer and say that. As he spoke, I felt the air begin to thicken with the rage of the Shinsengumi.
You're the swordsman from Ikeda? Those are pretty big words from such a little man.
Hijikata's smile was anything but warm.
I'd heard you were talented for peasants, but after this sorry display, it looks like those rumors were just that.
He looked down at the man he'd cut down and laughed.
That man from the inn, Okita, was it? Far too weak to be considered any kind of real swordsman.
Youch. Hijikata's teeth were now almost completely bared. By the by, remember how I was saying that the divisions were based on how good their swordsmanship skills were?
Yes.
Okita's in the 1st division. So he's like making fun of their best swordsman. Or one of their best swordsmen.
How rude.
How rude. I knew that Okita wasn't weak at all, and I wanted to tell him so, but it is true that he had been injured.
Insult Suji all you want.
Suji.
Soji.
Soji. Soji. With a southern accent?
Okay. But how about you tell us why you killed this man first?
I heard the soft hiss of Nagakura's sword sliding from its scabbard. At his feet lay the man who'd been attacked, his face now an odd pale color. There was no doubt that he was dead.
If I don't like what I hear, then I'm gonna kill you right here.
I mean, I think we have just reason to kill him. He did kill one of our soldiers. The man snorted.
To defend your warrior's pride? The Shogun says jump and you say how high? Tell me, where's the pride in that?
There was anger in his voice too, but at what I didn't know.
Why are you pursuing men who've lost and fled the battlefield? If you even pretend to have pride of your own, then you must understand what they've gone to Mount Tenno to take their own lives.
Yeah, they're gonna go commit seppuku.
Yes.
Honorable suicide, yes. What? Was he telling the truth? Did the Choshu men really mean to commit honorable suicide? I looked over at Hijikata and the rest of his men, but not a one of them looked surprised. The man in front of us was trying to stop the Shinsengumi in an attempt to protect the bride of the Choshu samurai. That was why he was mad. But is it really alright to take a man's life for the sake of someone else's pride? It seemed to me that fighting for the sake of someone else's pride wasn't really right. How could you know their heart or their thoughts? Pride is something you have to defend yourself. How can someone keep their pride if someone else has to fight for it? In a way I could understand his intentions, but I couldn't help but question his actions.
Then, are you saying I should simply allow the Shinsengumi to take what pride the Choshu have left, so they can earn a commendation for arresting them?
He did not sound amused. No, that's not really what I meant, but under that crimson glare my voice trailed off. I felt like I hadn't really explained myself at all. Hijikata had listened to our short conversation, and he seemed unimpressed.
Pathetic. I thought you were trying to make some kind of point, stranger. But you're just whining like a child who can't get his way. This is war, you idiot. What?
The man spoke through clenched teeth, and the knuckles of his sword hand had gone white.
They started a fight over something stupid, then don't have the balls to see it through and ran away with their tails between their legs. Men like that don't deserve to die with honor.
His voice cracked like lightning, and before I realized it, I'd taken a step back.
They're traitors, and cowards besides. You really think a man like that deserves an honorable death? They'll die with their guts where they belong, and their heads in the dirt. Then you mean they should have been prepared to die for their cause when they went to war?
Usually, yes.
Any man who starts a fight he isn't willing to give his life for doesn't know what it means to be a warrior. Let's say they do have some scrap of pride left. Wouldn't dying in a battle be better than dying on your own sword?
I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I could tell that Hijikata's own concept of pride and honor was not something he could easily compromise. Still, no matter how long he and the stranger spoke, I also knew that they would never see eye to eye. There was the hiss of metal as Hijikata drew his sword from its scabbard, and I saw Nagakura drop into a fighting stance. Hijikata turned to look at him, his eyes narrowed, and after muttering something angry under his breath, Nagakura stepped back and put his blade back in its sheath. Hijikata's gonna take this guy on one-on-one.
You don't look like a coward to me, so I figure you're ready to finish what you started when you killed one of my men. Big words from a small man.
Hey, Hijikata already used that insult. You can't use it back. It just doesn't work.
Do you honestly believe you can defeat me?
Swing, swing. In an instant, their swords met, and the clang of metal on metal reverberated through the mid-afternoon air.
Which has to be horrible for the edge.
It's gotta be, yeah. I mean, putting chips in the blade.
Yeah.
They sprang apart, eyes fixed on one another, and I saw... something. Hijikata's hands tightened on his sword. Okay. The commander was a skilled swordsman, very skilled, but this man had defeated Okita. I saw Nagakura reach for his own sword. He was clearly about to leap into the fight as well, probably hoping to help Hijikata gain the upper hand. 1 second. Okay. Now you can make your choice.
Now I can make my choice?
Now you can make your choice. I put a save here just in case, because I don't remember what happens if you choose wrong.
Let's go for it. Murder this guy.
I'll fight too. There was only one of them, and if Nagakura and I stood with Hijikata, we'd have a pronounced advantage.
That's the spirit, Naomi. Don't push it too hard, though. You are a girl, after all.
Way to yell that out, Nagakura! I heard the repeated scrape of metal moving as Nagakura and the men behind us all drew their swords to join the commander.
Idiots! Why did we come here?
I think that was the wrong choice. His words stopped us in our tracks. Our detachment had been given the assignment of tracking down the rebels who had fled to Mount Tenno. We didn't have any time to waste, but even so, we could hardly just leave Hijikata behind.
Do you think I'll just let you pass?
He smiled, daring us to try him, and Hijikata snarled back.
Pay attention. I'll put a sword through your back as easily as your front.
With Hijikata in striking distance, the swordsman didn't dare move toward us.
I'll catch up to you as soon as I'm done with this bastard. Now get out of here.
I was torn. Hijikata was an amazing swordsman, but the stranger was...
Alright, Hijikata. I'm gonna leave this guy to you. Come on, men. We're moving out. Double time!
As he spoke, Nagakura slid his sword back into the scabbard with practiced ease and gestured to the men. Were we really just gonna leave Hijikata behind? I was still trying to think it through when Nagakura grabbed my hand.
Come on! You know the commander's a monster. Even if this chump killed him, he wouldn't die.
I don't think that's how death works. Yeah, it was technically the wrong choice to get a point with Hijikata. But yeah, it doesn't really matter, I guess. His words calmed me a little, but Nagakura wasn't going to wait for a full recovery. He simply dragged me along until I began to run. It's almost nighttime. I was waiting at the base of Mount Tenno. Nagakura had led most of the men further up in search of the Choshi rebels, but a few had been left at the bottom, in the unlikely event that any Choshu came this way. I'd stayed with them.
It'll be alright. He'll be back soon. I'm sure of it.
How many times had we done that, I wondered. Every time I'd seemed down, Shimada was there to cheer me up. He's a nice guy. Do you really think so? I couldn't get Hijikata out of my head. We'd left him behind, fighting an opponent we knew nothing about. It was all too easy to imagine that the worst had happened. I hope he's safe. No sooner were the words out of my mouth than a shadow appeared in the dirt road in front of me. Ah! The shadow stepped toward us and into the light. Hijikata! He was all right. I felt tears spring to my eyes and shoved them away with the back of my hand.
Glad to see you're safe, Commander. Doesn't even look like you've been injured. Good work.
Shimada sounds like he's close to tears too. It's cute. Shimada was right. Hijikata was without a scratch, but even so, his face was dark.
I'd hoped we'd have a real fight, but we'd barely started when the Satsuma stuck their noses in.
Struck their noses. They like headbutted us. What were the Satsuma doing there?
His name's Chikage Kazama.
Yes.
Chikage Kazama. Seems he's a part of the Satsuma. The encyclopedia has been updated.
Yep. But if he's part of the Satsuma domain, hadn't they helped the Aizu drive off the Choshu? Then why had Kazama tried to stop the Shinsengumi? I frowned. Something wasn't right. Does that mean he disobeyed orders? Kazama, I mean.
Probably. The men who broke up our fight seemed like they didn't know what the hell he was up to either. For whatever reason, I don't think they could push him around. He must be pretty important.
He thinks so. ... From what Hijikata had said, Kazama was certainly a skilled, powerful warrior, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it than that. When Hijikata spoke next, his voice was bitter.
He's a lazy son of a bitch with enough money or influence to do whatever the hell he feels like. He doesn't give a shit about honor or pride.
Wow, that's actually really accurate. There wasn't anything Shimada or I could really say in response to that, and so we fell silent. Before Hijikata could continue, we heard the sound of men approaching, and Nagakura appeared, the bulk of our detachment trailing behind him. I saw Nagakura stop for a split second when he noticed Hijikata, and then a grin tugged at the side of his face.
Well, we went up to the top to have a look, but every last one of those bastards had already cut themselves wide open.
Oh. My heart fell as he explained. I wasn't sad that they'd killed themselves, or that the Shinsengumi hadn't been able to arrest them, only that more lives had been lost.
Honorable suicide, eh? Good for them.
As he spoke, he flashed a half-smile at Nagakura. Is that okay? Only a few hours before, he'd said that they were criminals and deserved to be beheaded, but now he was applauding them for taking their own lives? He shrugged.
Not before the Shinsengumi. We let them fulfill their mission, which means we failed ours. I wanted to arrest them, but they're dead now. What good would it do to ignore what they did? Friend or enemy, a man who dies with honor deserves at least some respect.
Oh, I suppose that makes some sense. It was obvious that I really only half understood what he was trying to say, and his expression softened a little. And that was the end of our journey to Mount Tenno. Together once again we returned to the Imperial Estate to meet up with the rest of the Shinsengumi. On the way back, Hijikata and the men began to discuss their next move. It looked like there was still plenty for the Shinsengumi to do in Kyoto. Oh, I think this is the end of Chapter 1. The Choshu extremists' attempted attack on the Imperial Estate eventually came to be known as the Hamaguri Rebellion. Oh, sorry, I was wrong about the name of it. Although the Shinsengumi were called to action, their efforts were stymied, and they found little in the way of glory. Communication with their superiors had been poor at best, and they spent much of the battle waiting with the reserves. When the Shinsengumi did finally enter the battle, they found several strange opponents waiting for them. Chikage Kazama, the man who defeated Okita at Ikeda, claimed to be from the Satsuma domain during his encounter with Hijikata. Kyuji Amagiri, the man who had shattered Heisuke's head guard at Ikeda, also claimed membership in the Satsuma. They had also met Kyo Shiranui, who'd fought alongside men from Choshu. Whoever they were, it was clear that they were not allies of the Shinsengumi. Indeed, it seemed they could easily become some of its greatest enemies. If they were to meet in open battle, the casualties would be severe. By the time the battle was over, the commanders of the Choshu attack had been killed in fighting or taken their own lives. There were some soldiers, however, who escaped, setting Kyoto ablaze as they fled. By some terrible misfortune, the wind that day blew from the north and fanned the flames, reducing the southern end of the imperial estate to ash. As a result of the Choshu attack, many imperial nationalists were executed. After everything had been sorted out, the Shinsengumi were at last given permission to patrol outside of Kyoto, from Osaka to Hyogo. No sooner had they been given permission than they set to work rounding up unruly Ronin and defending the public good. With the Hamaguri rebellion over, the Choshu were branded as traitors for attacking the estate. From then on, they were acknowledged enemies of the court. So it sounds like things turned out fairly well for the Shinsengumi at this point. And now we're on to Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. February 1865.
So we've now been with all these people for a year. Still haven't found Dad. Still don't know what we saw that first night we came to Kyoto. After breakfast one day, I found myself on the way to the common room with a tray bearing tea. Tea's ready. I made my way around the room, pouring a cup of tea for each person there, making sure not to spill any. It was a routine I'd begun to feel accustomed to.
Oh, thank you, Yukimura.
He gave me a warm smile as I handed him his tea.
He's a romanceable option, right?
No.
There's nothing quite so delicious as hot tea on a cold day.
Thank you. I felt a flush of pride at his words, even though I knew quite well that serving tea was hardly anything impressive. Just the same, I felt as if I was helping out in a way, and that was a nice feeling. It had been a year since I'd first come to Kyoto in search of my father. Living with the Shinsengumi wasn't easy, but they'd helped me look for him. Even after a year of searching, however, I hadn't found anything. Sometimes I felt like it was hopeless, like I'd never find him, and that I should just give up. But the men of the Shinsengumi never gave up. They were always there to cheer me on and keep me going. In a way, I suppose I'd grown to love living with them. And I'd even been able to repay them for some of their kindness by helping treat the wounded at the Battle of Ikeda Inn and during the Hamaguri Rebellion. Little by little, I started to feel like I was accepted, as if perhaps I was beginning to fit in. As strange as it might sound, I was beginning to feel as if I had found a place with the Shinsengumi. Then Hijikata spoke, and his words brought me back to the present.
Yagi have been acting good to us so far, but this place is getting crowded. Encyclopedia has been updated.
Uh-huh.
Apparently we learned something about Yagi.
Yagi, yep. The Yagi were, let's see, they were a family who had a large estate, and basically that estate is what the Shinsengumi currently have their headquarters in.
Ah.
So that's what he's talking about. It's getting too crowded in this set of buildings now.
Ah. I see. True, it is getting a little small, especially with all the new guys coming in.
You're going to be getting even more soon, right? Heisuke was currently in Edo recruiting more of the men for the Shinsengumi's ranks. It was always good to have more soldiers, but they were beginning to run out of space at the compound. The rank-and-file soldiers were being packed into smaller and smaller rooms.
If we could move to a bigger place, that'd be great. Guys are starting to get a little grumpy about being packed together in those rooms every night.
I couldn't exactly offer to share it, but I was starting to feel guilty for having a room of my own.
Easy for us to say, but it's going to be hard to find someone else who's willing to let us stay at their place. You have something in mind?
Hijikata's smile was almost predatory.
The Nishi Hongwanji Temple?
Yes.
The encyclopedia has apparently been updated.
Uh-huh.
They aren't going to like that very much.
Nope.
You're thinking we'll just force our way in? Guess I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Hijikata.
This is a Buddhist temple that they're talking about.
Yeah, let's just
We're just gonna be like, hey, we're staying here now.
let's just shack up a bunch of soldiers in a temple that preaches peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna go over great, guys. Good
Yep,
plan.
yep. He has like a
and those
ulterior motive for this.
those Buddhist monks, they were not afraid to, they were all about peace. But if you messed with them, they could really make your life hurt.
I didn't leave the compound much, except to go and patrol with the men, so I still didn't know Kyoto very well, and I had no idea what sort of place this Nishi Hongwanji temple was.
It is pretty big, I'll give you that. But I really don't think the monks are going to take a bunch of soldiers living in their temple. Still, the location's great. We'll be able to get out into the city a lot quicker than from out here in Mibu.
At the time, the Shinsengumi's headquarters was in the Mibu area, which was on the outskirts of Kyoto.
The encyclopedia has been updated.
About Mibu.
About Mibu.
Harada was right in that the current location made it difficult for the Shinsengumi to reach some parts of Kyoto quickly, which reduced their effectiveness. Still, will they really not want us there? Saito only shrugged.
The Nishi Hongwanji Temple has been cooperating with the Choshu. Some of their Ronin have stayed there.
Oh. If they supported the Choshu, then that would make the Shinsengumi their enemy. Little wonder then that they would hardly welcome us with open arms. That meant a whole other level of difficulty. Asking for a place to stay was hard enough, but asking that from an enemy? I fell silent, and Saito continued as if I'd never spoken.
No doubt they will be less than receptive to our overtures. On the other hand, if we should move into the Nishi Hongwanji Temple, Choshu will have one less place to hide their agents.
Oh. Of course. Not only was the location desirable, but taking the temple would make the enemy's movement more difficult. Whatever problems we had acquiring the temple would likely be worth it.
You don't think it's somewhat uncouth to use force against men of the cloth?
Maybe a little, but I don't think Hijikata's... I don't think he has a problem with being uncouth. There was no hiding his distaste for the idea.
That's been pretty obvious so far, yeah.
Yeah.
Your line.
Oh, sorry. There was no hiding his distaste for the idea. Hijikata's voice was level, but firm as steel.
The Choshu have used the temple to hide their men, and they couldn't have done that without the help of the monks. I agree that the Choshu must be dealt with, but this seems...
His voice trailed off. Although he was still clearly upset, there was little more he could say or do. Oh, this guy.
I agree with Toshi, but I have to concede that Sanan has a point.
That's a very diplomatic answer, Kondo. He nodded solemnly, apparently deep in thought.
Impressive as always, Chief Kondo. Only a man with a truly open mind can be so considerate of both his enemies and his allies. Oh, well, it's very kind of you to say so.
Look at Kondo
but I fear my
blushing.
behavior is simply imprudent, not open-minded.
He blushed and coughed in an attempt at nonchalance as Hijikata and Okita scowled in silence at the exchange. Oh, we're about to introduce this guy, right? Yeah. The man who just spoke was, hang on a second, Kashitaro Itou, the new deputy commander. He had joined the Shinsengumi only recently. I totally forgot his name because my friend and I, when we were playing this game, always just called him Gay Eyes. The entire time. Sorry,
Horrible
but it's true. You know, like every gay character in anime like has this style of eye. At least, a lot of them anyway.
Gay people apparently have specific eyes, alright.
Only in anime. Kondo had left Heisuke in Edo and returned early with Itou and some of his men who had come to join the Shinsengumi. He was reputedly a master of the Hokushin Ito sword style and ran a school of his own.
The encyclopedia has been updated.
Yep. When Itou was introduced to the captains, none of them seemed particularly pleased with his addition to their ranks. No sooner had Itou and Kondo left the room than they began to talk amongst themselves.
I've heard Itou is an imperial nationalist. Why would someone such as him join the Shinsengumi? He's like the Choshu, then. Really think someone like that can get along with us?
Hijikata grunted and pursed his lips for a moment.
Kondo's a national loyalist. They might not agree on the shogun and the emperor, but they're both nationalists, through and through. The encyclopedia has been updated, apparently, about national loyalists.
They might disagree about who should run the country, but neither of them wanted a foreign nation exerting its control over their country.
Besides, Kondo's a loyalist without a doubt, but he has a few imperialist tendencies of his own.
Perhaps the different factions weren't quite so staunchly divided as they might appear. Would Kondo and the Shinsengumi work for a future where the shogunate controlled the country but the emperor was still treated with respect? That seemed like a solution that could make everyone happy. If that was the case, then Kondo's version of national loyalism was a wonderful thing.
I figure the only way one of us would be very happy about Itou showing up would be Sanan, right? True. They do both practice Itou, right? Itou.
Yep.
He knows Itou too, doesn't he? And Sanan is a bit of a loyalist.
I wouldn't have guessed that Sanan and Itou had so much in common. His expression didn't suggest that he was particularly happy, though.
Yes, I have met Itou. He is well educated and a skilled orator. With such a gifted deputy commander, I suppose that the Shinsengumi has little need for a colonel.
Yeah, he's not very happy with Itou being here because it makes him feel like he's being pushed out of leadership. Sanan's words hung in the air, heavy and awkward. I didn't understand the ranks in the Shinsengumi, but as far as I could tell, a deputy commander outranked a colonel.
With Itou here, there is very little left for me to do.
I hadn't even thought of it that way. Sanan felt that Itou was a threat to his own position. An awkward silence fell across the room.
So? I don't like him.
Okito was the first to speak.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's something about the way he looks at you.
With those weird eyes.
Exactly. I don't know how to put it. Like he's sort of uppity, you know? Like he's looking down on you or something.
There was a good deal of nodding and agreeing among the three of them for a few moments while I sat and thought. Truth to be told, I didn't feel particularly comfortable around Deputy Commander Itou either. It wasn't that he was a bad person per se, only that he was, how to say it, off-putting? Itou's thin smile had spread across his face when Sanan voiced his objection to Hijikata's plan, and now he turned and spoke.
You always think of all the possibilities, Sanan. I'm impressed. But I fear you may be overthinking this. It could be a problem, yes, but...
His tone was deferential, but it didn't quite match his words.
Don't you think a slightly greater problem would be that your left arm is utterly useless?
Oh... Whatever warmth had remained in the room was abruptly gone.
Of course, you needn't be useless, even if you can no longer serve as a soldier. I'm sure that your wit and foresight will continue to be a great asset to the Shinsengumi, and myself.
It was as if Itou had taken a knife and driven it straight into Sanan's heart. I saw his shoulders sag, almost as if he had been punched in the stomach, and all around the room jaws were set and knuckles turned white.
Perhaps I didn't hear you right, Itou.
You want to say that again? Hijikata's voice was cold and sharp, like the sound of a blade sliding across a whetstone.
Sanan's smart, like you said. But more than that, he's a swordsman of the Shinsengumi. He is not useless, and he is not replaceable.
Hijikata's last words erupted from his mouth in a snarl, and there was no mistaking their meaning.
My arm is...
He couldn't even seem to bring himself to finish. No matter how much they might need a swordsman of his skill, Sonnen could no longer wield the blade. They both knew his arm would never heal, and Hijikata's desperate defense of his friend had likely only made Sonnen feel worse.
Oh dear, that was terribly rude of me. Truly, there could be no better news than hearing that your arm has healed.
Ito's smile fooled no one, and Sonnen fell silent.
God damn it.
He only muttered it under his breath, but I was close enough to hear. Too late, Hijikata realized his mistake. ... This was the first time I'd seen Hijikata so worked up. He might have been harsh, but he almost always projected an air of control. Perhaps Sonnen's injury worried him enough to allow the mask to slip.
Ito?
Kondo was clearly choosing his words carefully in a very nearly desperate attempt to change the subject.
If you would care to, perhaps you might come and have a look at our training regimen.
Ito's eyes narrowed, and his mouth curled in a small smile.
My, how thoughtful of you. Yes, of course, I would love to have a look. Ah, the training room. Air heavy with the sweat of men straining to better themselves. Truly a delight.
The look on your face right now.
This guy could not be any more gay sounding if he tried.
Yep. Although, like, in this period of history, it wouldn't be unheard of. Oh, and that's actually the end of our episode, too.
Alright.
What a great place to end off.
Gay guy wanting to watch sweaty men straining to better themselves.
Great. Well, guys, I guess we'll see you in the next episode.
It's enough ridiculousness for one day.
Until then, bye.
Bye.